Hi, I'm Tori, and today I'm going to be discussing the book We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This book was published in 1962, and I listened to the audiobook narrated by Bernadette Doone. This book had such a wonderful tone. Everything was so dark and mysterious. It takes place in this big, creepy house with this strange collection of family members all living together, and the whole book, everyone is fixated on this horrible event that happened 6 years ago when most of the family died. The whole book kind of revolves around kind of trying to pin down what happened that night. The tone of this book was so much fun. I would say it's halfway between like Dark Places by Gillian Flynn and The Secret of Nightingale Wood. It's this very mysterious, dark, slow build of a novel. So if you want to read this book, go do that. I would recommend reading it maybe in the fall or sometime when it's starting to be really stormy outside and mysterious, and then come back to hear my opinions. So I love this book, and I thought it was so fascinating. Mary Catherine was such an interesting narrator because she was so childlike, and everyone in this book was so much like hiding from the world, you know. Mary Catherine was the one who had to like go out into the town and stuff, but she was 18 years old and she did not act like an 18-year-old. I don't know if it was because of trauma or if she had just always been a little different. Maybe something happened in her childhood. You don't really know, but she's just very different. And then Constance has to be, you know, the strong one to kind of lead the family, but then she's terrified to leave the house and she can't do that. And everyone is so kind of crippled by fear. Uncle Julian, you know, is always sitting trying to figure out what happened that night, compiling his papers. And then I thought it was really well done because as someone reading the book, I cared the entire time about what happened 6 years ago. How did the family die? Who poisoned them? And I cared a lot, but at the same time it was very clear that our narrator didn't really care, and it was a fact of her daily life that the whole family had been poisoned, but it wasn't something she spent a lot of time thinking about. And, you know, throughout the whole book, the only thing that Mary Catherine really cares about is fighting change. She wants her life to stay the same. She likes life the way it is, and she doesn't want change, and she doesn't want any of her life to be different. And so, you know, when Cousin Charles shows up, Constance wants so much for him to be there to help her and stuff, and she's had a very hard life trying to take care of the little remnants of her broken family, and you can see why she tries so hard to trust Charles and why she wants him to be helping so much. But you can also see that Charles is not a nice person. He's horrible to Mary Catherine. He wants her to like him just kind of so he can say, oh look, children like me, but he's not actually all that nice to her, and they end up bickering and he says all these horrible things to her. And then when they actually have the tragedy and their house is on fire, all he can think about is getting the money out of the house, and you can tell that all he's ever wanted is to get money, which was kind of apparent from the beginning anyway, because, you know, Mary Catherine takes all these, you know, trinkets from her parents and tries to use them to, you know, like she'll nail them to trees or all these different things that just makes her feel better. And he's horrified and says, he's never like, oh, you hurt some priceless thing that is so special. He's always like, I could have worn that. I could have used that. And so it's very clear from the beginning that he is just trying to steal things and trying to get as much financially out of these people as he can. And Mary Catherine sees that, obviously, because she doesn't want change, and Constance doesn't because she's so tired and she needs help so much. It was really fascinating to watch these characters interact with the outside world. You know, everyone in the village is terrified of them, and that's partly like there's a very distinct class divide. You know, the Blackwoods are all definitely upper class, and they still have some upper class friends who will still come talk to them, but the villagers are lower class, and so they're just terrified of the Blackwoods and really, really hate them. And so every week when Mary Catherine goes to the village, you know, people will taunt her and pick on her and just be so cruel to her because they think her sister got off a murder charge scot-free. And it's just amazing to see how cruel these people are. And even like the upper class friends, you know, they're trying to help out the one woman who comes for tea. she's trying to help, but she's not really their friend. They don't trust her. She doesn't know how to talk to them in a way that makes them feel safe and comfortable. And this whole little family is just so scared of the outside world. And the outside world is scared of them. It's like this mutual relationship of fear and hate. And then, of course, at the climax, it just bubbles over in the fire, you know. And the town comes to help put it out. And then they just destroy the house. And it's just so tragic and heartbreaking. It's like this example of human nature kind of at its worst. This whole book is building toward finding out who poisoned the family 6 years ago. And you know that the characters aren't really super concerned about it. So I felt like they might know. I felt like since the sisters didn't care at all about finding out what happened, they probably knew already. And then like even fairly early on in the book, I thought, oh, everyone blames Constance. Mary Catherine's the only other one standing, and she wasn't even at the dinner table. Why hasn't anyone considered her? And so I thought it could be her. But the book did that in a way that still surprised me. Because by the end of the book, when we find out that it was Mary Catherine, I was still shocked. So I'd been expecting it to be her, but kind of not. And, you know, throughout the story, she has all these things like, this person was so horrible, I wish they would drop dead and die. And you kind of think, okay, that could be a response to having her whole family killed. But no, apparently she's just always been like that. And she's kind of, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a sociopath or something. Or, I'm not sure if that's quite the right word, but she has a very hard time understanding that actions have consequences. And understanding kind of how the permanence of things, the permanence of death, when their house burns down, she's the one who started that fire. She knocked the smoking pipe into the trash can full of papers and kind of was glad that the fire started, and she never once feels bad about it. She feels sad that their house is destroyed. She feels sad that this whole thing happened, and she never once says, oh, this was my fault, I started this fire. And she also misses her family and is very sad that they died. And she's very aware that she's the one who put the poison in the sugar, but she never equates that to having any responsibility. So she's a very interesting character because she just doesn't understand how her actions affect the world. Though she must have known a little bit, you know, because she was mad at the whole family, but not at Constance, which is why she chose to poison the sugar, because Constance doesn't take sugar with her blackberries. And this whole thing makes Constance's life even more sad, because Constance is the one who took the blame for the murders. She must have known that it was Mary Cat right away, because she cleaned out the sugar bowl, you know, and tried to hide the evidence. And she's sitting there and all of her family is dying and she's being sent to trial and stuff, but she still just wants to protect her sister because she knows that her sister isn't malicious. Even if she is very, very destructive, she doesn't mean to be malicious. And she's kind of the only family that Constance has left. And so it's just heartbreaking to watch her take the blame and have all the villages hate her and have everyone think she poisoned people. And she's willing to take that on, kind of, to protect Mary Cat. And then Mary Cat, in turn, is the one who goes out into the world and kind of protects Constance from all the hatred that everyone directs toward her. So it's these two sisters who are so close and trying so hard to take care of each other. And it's just so tragic. So the main characters are basically Constance and Mary Cat. And neither of them have any character growth throughout this whole book. This whole book is just kind of a mystery to figure out what happened and to see how their lives are going to change. But these characters don't change at all. They stay the same. Their circumstances change, and they just kind of adapt to them. They still live in their broken down house. They barricade it and manage to keep people out, but they don't really try to repair it or anything. And they just become even more reclusive. And by the end of it, they're kind of like living ghosts. So this whole book is just kind of this ghost story. And then it is interesting because the townspeople have hated these girls for 6 years and they've been horrible to them. But then after they release all this hate, you know, and are just, you know, destroy this house, then they feel remorse and then they come and leave food for the girls and somehow let them survive and just kind of let them become recluses. So I love this book. It is a great, creepy autumn read. And it was just, the tone was delicious, and I had a lot of fun reading it on dark, stormy nights.